In this video, we're going to be taking a look at graphing data, and the essential question that we are going to answer is how can you use a coordinate grid to display data collected in an experiment? Now you will need to get out your Go Math book and turn to page 377, get out your math journal and also a pencil. Now I'm not going to have you do this experiment as you watch this video, but we're going to do a hypothetical situation. So let's say, for example, we did this experiment with paper, cup, the water, Fahrenheit thermometer, ice cubes, and a stopwatch. Now let's say, for example, that we started dropping the ice cubes in, and then we started recording the temperature. And let's say at 0 seconds, and I want you to fill this out, the temperature was 75 degrees Fahrenheit. And then after 10 seconds it was 70, and then it was 60 after 20 seconds, then it was 55 after 30 seconds, and then after 40 seconds it was 50 degrees. Then after 50 seconds 45 degrees, and then after 60 seconds, let's say the water was 40 degrees. So you can see the data that is in our graph now, or in our table. So we're going to take this data, then we're going to move to page 378 and start working with the data. Now let's take a look at these questions on page 378 and referring to our table there on page 377. Now, first of all, explain why you would record the beginning temperature at 0 seconds. And we can see, and I want you to write this down in your Go Math book, the beginning temperature is recorded at 0 seconds because the ice has not been put in the cup and the experiment has not yet started. So that's why we will start at 0 seconds. So I want you to write that in your Go Math book. And then number 2, describe what happens to the temperature of the water in 60 seconds during the experiment. So we can take a look at our table once again. And we can see 75, 70, 60, 55, and so on. Now we can see, and we're going to record this, the temperature decreases the longer the ice cubes are in the water. And then number 3, it says analyze your observation of the temperature of the water during the 60 seconds and explain what you think would happen to the temperature if the experiment continued for 60 seconds longer. Now what we can see based upon our table, since the temperature decreases the longer the ice cubes are in the water, I believe the temperature would continue to decrease to about 35 degrees. Obviously it's not going to go below, it's not going to go 32 or below because that is freezing. So the ice cubes are not going to freeze the water, but we can see that we can make that assumption. So I want you to write those 3 answers in your Go Math book, and then we'll take a look at the making connections section. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a coordinate grid to graph and analyze the data that we collected. Now we're going to use the ordered pair first of all of 0 and then 75 because at 0 seconds the temperature was 75 degrees. And then at 10 seconds it was 70 degrees. And we'll continue to fill in our data. 20 seconds it was 60 degrees. 30 seconds, see 55 degrees. 40 seconds, 50 degrees. 50 seconds, 45, and then 60 seconds you can see 40 degrees. Now those are the ordered pairs that we're going to graph on our coordinate grid. However, before we do this, what we need to do is we need to write a title for the graph and also label each axis. So what we can see here, we're going to give our coordinate grid a title. We're going to call this water temperature. We're going to label the y-axis. We'll call this temperature. The x-axis, we'll call this time. Now I also did put the intervals for both the y-axis and the x-axis. You can see I did intervals of 10 for the x-axis and intervals of 5 for the y-axis. Now what we will do, we will plot our points. So 0 and 75, in other words 0 on the x-axis, 75 on the y-axis, and I will use blue for this. We'll plot that point right there. Okay, 10 and 70, in other words we go 10 to the right, lining up with the 10 on my x-axis, and we go up to 70 on my y-axis. We'll plot that point just right there, lining up with the 70 and then the 10 representing the x and y axis. 20 and 60. So go over 20 on my x-axis, come up 60 on my y-axis. And I do want you to do this with me. Alright, now we have 30 and 55. So go over 30 on the x-axis because that is represented the x-axis, my ordered pair. 55, you need to go up 55 there and plot that point just like I did. Okay, also going to 40 and 50. So go over 40 on the x-axis and go up. So you're in line with 50 on the y-axis. Alright, next one, 50, 45. So go over 50 on the x-axis and go up 45 on the y-axis. Plot your point. And then finally 60 and 40. So go over 60 on the x-axis and go up 40 on the y-axis. So you can see that we plotted our points for each ordered pair. Now I know there's a question at the bottom that says what is the ordered pair that you recorded for the data at 10 seconds? Okay, so what you can see at 10, the ordered pair at 10 seconds is 1070. Okay, now also explain what each coordinate represents. So we know that the x coordinate represents the amount of time that the ice cubes were in, and then the y coordinate represents the temperature, okay, of the water at each second there. Okay, let's take a look at this next problem on page 379. Says Ryan's height, and what we need to do is graph the data on the coordinate grid. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to write the ordered pairs for each point, and I want you to do this with me. Alright, so we have 1, 30. Okay, then we have 2, 35, 2 and 35. Okay, and you can also see, before I get into all this, missed a section here, we can see why are we doing 1 for the x-axis and 2 and so on, the age for the x-axis and the height for the y. So because we can see the x-axis deals with the age and the y-axis deals with the height. Okay, so let's do 3 and 38, 4 and 41. Whoops. And 5 and 44. So we have ordered pairs for each point. Now we're going to plot each point on the coordinate grid. So we have 1 and 30. So we go over 1 on the x-axis and go up 30 on the y. 2, 35, we go 2 units on the x-axis and then up to 35. We know that's 35 because they're increments of 10, and right in the middle of 10 is a 5 there. Okay, so now we have 338. So we go over 3 and go up 38. So this is going to go right below that 40 there. 441, go over 4 and go right above that 40 there for 41. Alright, then 544, we go over 5 on the x-axis and go up 44. So right below that 45. Okay, so we can see our data right there on the coordinate grid. Okay, now let's take a look at the next question. What does the ordered pair 338 tell you about Ryan's age and height? And we can see that at the age of 3, okay, we see 3, which deals with the age in years. At the age of 3, that Ryan was 38 inches. Okay, so let's write that down in your Go Math book. And then the final one, letter C, why would the point 642 be nonsense? Okay, and we can see the answer here. Why would the point 642 be nonsense. So we can see, because it would mean at the age of 6, Ryan's height would be less than his height at the age of 5. He would have gotten shorter as he got older instead of taller. So I do want you to write that in your Go Math books on page 379. Okay, I want you to work through this problem on page 379 all by yourself. When you're finished, you can press play and I will have the answer for you. So pause the video now. Okay, here are the answers for the data on the coordinate grid. Okay, so you can make sure your answers match mine. And moving to the test prep problem, I want you to work through this problem all by yourself. When you're finished, you can press play and I will have the answer for you. So pause the video now. Okay, the answer is letter C. And moving to the essential question, how can you use a coordinate grid to display data collected in an experiment? If my data are measured in 2 ways, such as time and temperature, I can write my recorded data as ordered pairs and then graph them. So this concludes the video on graphing data. If you have any questions about this concept, please come and see me.